Welcome to Stump the Monk in quarantine once again. Reverend Daigan and our producer director, guy who actually does all the heavy lifting, Fred Gebhardt. Today's episode, we're talking with two members of the Companions of Dorothy the Worker, which is a religious organization here in San Francisco that serves the queer community. Simon Ding-Lawson and Reverend Diane Wheeler, also known as Mother Diana, who was the founder of Companions of Dorothy the Worker. And so it's a very interesting conversation about ministry in the everydayness of our life. And I think it fits really well into what we try to do here at Stump the Monk, which is how do I just feel better in my own existence. So enjoy, and we'll be right back with Reverend Diana Wheeler and the lovely Simon.
But first, it's time for some questions. Question 1. What is the importance of slowing down?
You know, I think that the way that I've figured out how to not let the habits of my mind sort of lead me forward into making choices or doing things that could be hurtful has been by slowing down and trying to pause, particularly when I have a strong reaction or I have a strong emotion. I think that slowing down, that pause, gives us time to catch up with our thoughts and time to catch up with our hearts. Because I think hearts speak slower and quieter. And so, my mind can go very quickly. And sometimes my body and my heart and my emotions need to catch up and find balance there before I make a choice about how I want to behave. And so for me, it's actually been really helpful in helping me also catch on to the stories I create or was socialized into. So part of the work of undoing patriarchy and undoing white supremacy in my own life and in my own activity and in my own speech has been to that pause, that practice of just having the thought without having to do anything about it except say, oh, that's racist, or oh, that's sexist, or that's, oh my God, you should let her talk, like, or quit trying to tell her how to do this job she's done for 20 years. Like those things that I can catch, like if I can pause, I can catch them. And then over time, as I begin to catch them, they stop sort of actually occurring, right? The more I sort of catch myself, the more I sort of tell on myself, even if it's just to myself. And so, it's a way to kind of change those socialization responses that have become just simple habits of mind.
Question 2. How can spirituality help guide our moral codes?
In Buddhism, there's an idea called, in the mind of the bodhisattva, immorality or the breaking of vows doesn't occur, right? So that being that as you develop the perfection of these practices, like the thought of like taking something that's not given or killing something stops even entering your mind, right? Greed will eventually stop entering your mind. Now, I'm not a bodhisattva, but what I notice is that the more I sort of practice spiritually and allow my vows and my intentions to orient me in the world in particular kinds of ways, those ideas and those thoughts and those ways that I contribute to suffering in the grossest forms, they just become quieter, and I start to make better choices, and also, if you spend enough time listening to the quietness of your own mind and the quietness of your own heart, it changes you in ways that you won't even, I think it's unspeakable, it's unknowable, but there are things in my life that just have changed me because I let them register, because I practice this way of being in the world. And any muscle, right? Like, if we do the things that are important to us enough, we start to get good at them, right? So if I want to be in the world in a particular kind of way, the more I practice being in the world in a particular kind of way, the bigger that muscle gets, the easier it becomes. And it eventually ends up being just the natural way of things, and not such a conscious, I have to think about it kind of thing. Same thing with art or sport or, filmmaking. So I did this privately, but I want to do it again publicly and just acknowledge that Fred has finished his schooling and graduated and is done, and we're very proud of him. So congratulations, and we love you. And today I want to welcome my guests, Mother Diana Wheeler and Simon Dungles from, and you'll correct me on my mangling of your name.
This is Dinglasen. Thank you.
Dinglasen. Both from the Companions of Dorothy the Worker, which is a really great new, and maybe Diana, you can start by telling us exactly what Companions of Dorothy the Worker are and where it fits in a religious institution, as well as sort of your ministry in general.
Okay. Well, the Companions of Dorothy the Worker is a Christian community of Christians who minister to the queer community, with the queer community, but we're ecumenical, so we are Christians, but we are from different denominations. And we support each other in our ability to do ministry. We're very involved in the communities that we live in. We're not confined to just one place. So we have folks in other parts of the country, and we have folks right now in England and in Finland. So yeah, that's what we do.
That's amazing. And as an institution, are you part of any denomination? I know that individually you're not part of a denomination.
Individually, actually, yes, we are individually members of various denominations.
Okay, but as a group, do you have denominational support?
Yes, so I am an Episcopal deacon in the Diocese of California, which covers from Santa Clara, not including Santa Clara, but north to the Carquinez Strait. And we are, I think you would call it, informally recognized and supported by my bishop and diocese. And we are also members of a national Episcopal association called the National Association of Episcopal Christian Communities. So we are involved with other religious in the Episcopal and Anglican communities in North and some in South America, where we get support and offer support as far as witnessing to the needs of the queer community to the church.
That's awesome. So, Simon, let's ask you to start. So what brought you, so what's the history that brought you here and brought you to Companions in particular?
So Diana is what brought me to the Companions. Diana and I met when I first moved to San Francisco in 2007, which I did to join the Society of St. Francis, which is a Franciscan religious order in the Episcopal Church. And it's within that context that I met Diana when I started volunteering with the San Francisco Night Ministry as a crisis line counselor, and she was an assistant night minister walking the streets at night. And Diana started to do all this interesting work in the Castro. She would often be walking down there, and then we would talk about what she was discovering. And through my association with Diana, I started to realize how much I had compartmentalized my sexuality and my spirituality. And that my fruitful conversations with Diana led me to start to question that more and more. And to see that my healing of that rift required my also going out and being part of the bridge between the queer communities and the church and communities of faith. And, you know, when you start to experience that kind of healing for yourself, you just want to more and more, you want to more and more, you know, do that, you know, be that bridge in the world and to offer your life in that way. And I think my life journey has been about trying to make meaning of my life. And what I hadn't been able to see until I met Diana and started doing this work was the deep wound that I had really allowed others to inflict upon me, and that my work now moving forward is healing that for myself and helping others to recognize and heal that as well.
Really, I want to just take a minute to let that register. I think that's our work as humans, right? Like, I think the deepest parts of our suffering, how we heal those is to make that useful. And so that's really beautiful, and I'm grateful for that. Now, Diana, you and I met when you were doing night ministry.
Right.
I'm, you know, as part of the sisters, but also being a queer clergy guy walking in the world. That was before the formation of the Companions of Dorothy. I got to be at your formation and for a Buddhist blessing. So maybe talk about the early days and why it was important to switch from what you were doing, which is very similar to what the Companions do. Why it was important to make that shift and change the trajectory of your ministry.
Well, I've been a deacon now in the Episcopal Church for more than 16 years. And when, the job of a deacon is to interpret the needs of the world to the church and vice versa. And so, you're drilled in that. And when I went to work with San Francisco Night Ministry, I was really out in the world in a way that I hadn't been before. And I became very aware of how the church and religious institutions, while they, want to serve the world, they tend to want to do it in their own framework, in their own box. And what I was learning just by being out and being in relationships with people was that that's not, for me, in my interpretation of the walk that Jesus took, that wasn't what we were supposed to be doing. We were supposed to be out there meeting people where they were at, companioning, that's, how the term came, companioning people as they walk through their own journeys. People who are in ministry very often will come to it with, I've got something to teach you, right? I've got something to make you a better person. And you know what? We're all walking on the same journey, That's what we need to be doing. So in the companions, one of the things that was really important was meeting the needs of the community as interpreted by the community. So many of us do a lot of volunteer work in the community that's not church-based. I don't think I do any church-based volunteerism, right? I don't think I do. Less and less and less. So in that way, you are respecting what the community says they need. We're all grown-ups here, really. So for religious institutions to impose their what they think other people need is not what I think Jesus was about. And that was sort of blathering. Did that answer your question?
I think it did, because I think you get to the heart of what it means to practice, right?
Right.
And that's what this podcast is all about. Like, what's the difference between the theory and theology and what it looks like in my day-to-day life, right?
Right.
And what is as a clergy person or as a minister, or, however you want to frame it, what's my role to play in the world?
Right.
And how do I want to walk in the world?
Right. And my role in the world, and I don't really think the Christian's role in the world is to fill the pews with people. I don't believe that.
No.
So,
what do you think, if you were to say brief, like, what do you think your role in the world is?
I think my role in the world is to actually be with people and see them, and to learn to love, right? To learn to love. The way Jesus loved people, the way St. Francis loved people. No, I've never actually talked about it in this way. I've learned to love through this ministry. So, and I'm elderly, sort of.
I'm glad you said that and not me.
Uh-huh.
You and me both, girl.
Uh-huh. I think I beat you a little bit. But, I've lived, a fairly long life, and I can honestly say that since I took up the God's call, the challenge, right, to use all those words, which I don't really use all those words. Since I answered the call to really be with people, and without any of my own preconceived ideas of what should happen, I have learned to love. I've learned a lot about what love looks like. A love that's not transactional. That's huge. I mean, everybody no matter what kind of relationship you're in, what kind of community you're in, talks about unconditional love. We talk about the unconditional love of God, right? But practically speaking, I'm going to say for myself, I didn't know what that meant. And, being a part of the community that I serve over the years, and now it feels like it's been a while, I've learned about that kind of unconditional love, and it's been very transformative for me, very, very healing for me, because I think I'm going to speak for myself. I come into everything I do as a broken person, right? So anybody who looks at me and doesn't think I'm broken, they're not seeing me. I think the hardest thing for me in my life as an adult and somebody coming into ministry is sharing who I am as a broken person without needing to be fixed by somebody else. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the times that I do share my brokenness, it is, because we are all broken, right? So that you can see who I really am, so, and right.
And also, Dorothy Day, I want to get to your name really fast because, I have always explained it as, yes, it's Dorothy Day, but then there's also this connection to Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz within queer communities, right? and how it is.
I thought it was Dorothy Parker.
Well, like there's so many.
Another layer.
I know. It's cute, right?
Oh, I think it's adorable that there's this way in which your name becomes expanded on
whatever you need.
Right. And I just think it's so, and and the fact that nobody argues with that, right? Like
nobody
says, "Oh no, of course we're not. We're Dorothy Day." Like no, The Wizard of Oz is awesome, and okay, have some ruby red slippers, right? Like,
I have really good friends who still call us the Friends of Dorothy, and I'm like, yeah, that's us. We're Friends of Dorothy.
You got to not. It's like what people called me sister, thinking I was a nun way back in the beginning, or something else. And I, very quickly learned that I wasn't going to argue with anybody. I am what you need me to be in this moment.
Yeah.
Right. And Friends of Dorothy, the cute thing about that time, and I don't think you're old enough to remember, but that used to actually be the secret language.
Oh, I know. I'm not old enough to remember, but we have television.
Are you a friend of Dorothy? We have television.
So anyway, that was always when I would hear, because I have heard it referred to as the Friends of Dorothy.
I know.
I love it. I think it's great.
It always feels like a wink, wink, nod, nod to queer history. Okay.
I love it.
And as a sister, I love that sort of way in which ministry and the subtlety of ministry, right? Like we can be ministering without anyone noticing that's what, like we're being sisters, we're being campy, we're being ridiculous, we're, and yet at the same time, there's this ministry happening that
right
only seen if you take a minute to sort of look underneath it all, right?
And that was the attraction of the sisters to me. And, as I talk about long-term relationships, I've always been so blown away about the fact that so many sisters went to seminary, right? Information for the Roman priesthood,
right?
Information for whatever it was, or is a clergy member of, of faith communities. Right. And that constant learning, people don't tell you these things right away. So 10 years down the line, oh, by the way, did you know that, I studied at the Vatican?
I think one of the funny things about that is that the sisters are often accused of being anti-church.
Right.
Or anti-religious or anti-something. Yeah. When in fact, we're not anti-anything. We're just pro this other thing.
Right.
But that was one of the big pieces of my healing as well. When I first joined the Society of St. Francis, we were on Dolores Street, right across from Dolores Park, and so you all would have the big hunky Jesus thing, and for some of the brothers, it was disrespectful, and I had to sit with is it really, and to confront a lot of those things for myself, and it really was because I never really talked to a sister before. I just saw the surface stuff and wasn't curious about what's actually going on there. And it really was not until I started to do more stuff with Diana that I started to become curious and to be open and to figure out how to be non-judgmental, right? In the way that I approach life. And it's incredibly healing for me now to recognize how many sisters I actually know. I mean, I don't know nearly as many as Diana does, but I'm starting to get to know more and more of y'all, and it's wonderful.
Well, and I think Cookie Jesus is a perfect example of not taking yourself so seriously, and yet when you see in order to skew and satire something, you have to know it really well.
Right, exactly.
So you see what people come up with, and you realize, these people kind of they're in relationship with Jesus. It may be a different kind of relationship. And I'm always profoundly touched by some of the more, the ways in which, they sort of take the Jesus narrative or the hagiography of Jesus and kind of sneak in on one of the more subtle points, right? Like not the big things about being born and whatever in the Christmas story or Easter story or any of that, but they'll tune in on something small like pogo stick Jesus and using which pokes a little bit of fun at the Stations of the Cross, right? So to me, that's what's really interesting about it, is that it's actually, in a way, it comes from this place of being in relationship with this story.
Right. So one of the things that has always touched me is when over the years, when I've gone to sister events, and, I take a lot of pictures with my phone, which is why they die a lot. Taking pictures of sisters in face with the most intense presence, an image of the most intense presence, wearing rosaries, having images of the Virgin Mary, crosses, and being in the most, they're icons. They're icons of devotion. And when I have this whole series of pictures somewhere of sisters interacting with children.
Right.
Because my other part of my life, I teach very small children. And you can't tell me that that is not a symbol of the spirit of love.
Right.
That doesn't mirror, that you can't tell me that doesn't mirror the love of Mary for Jesus.
Right.
You can't. I just won't hear it.
Put her foot down.
Right?
Children either really love us and are really attracted to us, big time, or they're terrified of us and just run the other way. And I think it's you're a clown, so
right.
So, and I think the same is true.
Really, I actually am. It's
Yeah. It's the same way, right? Like children either really are okay and love clowns, or they're terrified of clowns. And it's really interesting because the people that you would think would be the most attracted to us, the children in particular, are the ones who are not at all and are terrified. And the ones who think parents have said all the time, like, oh my God, they're so shy with everyone else, but they just run up and love on us.
Right. Right.
You know, it's either sparkly or the white, you know, who knows what it is, but it's very interesting. And I think we sidetracked onto the sister stuff.
Imagine that.
It's organic. It's fine.
Fred might not think so, but
Fred has gotten used to my divergences. Simon, I want to talk a little bit about, so now you've left the friars and you're, and we also have a relationship as part of the Gay Buddhist Fellowship and a Monday night Buddhist meeting, which I hope you don't mind me outing you about.
That's fine.
So, I've always appreciated the way in which you, like you sit in multiple communities, maybe is a way to say it.
Yeah.
And could you talk a little bit about how is it that your personal faith works in that way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The shorthand answer is always that I'm a seeker. And when you're a seeker, you climb every mountain, search high and low, right? I mean, let's just be honest, right? The Sound of Music was a very important film to me as when I was growing up. Not least of which it sort of introduced me to religious orders, but also because there is something really, like there's something profound about the fact that when Maria came running back, the Reverend Mother was like, oh no, honey, no, you need to seek. You need to go out and find what it is that you are called to do and be in the world. And that means looking at the fullness of your life. And this is the same approach that I use with my spiritual direction. I always tell people when I first enter a relationship with them that my interest is in looking at the landscape of your life, everything. Nothing, we need to, if we can't do that, if we cannot both together lovingly and fearlessly look at every aspect of your life together, then I may not be the director for you, because that's how I have found, the places I need healing. And that's what I bring, the perspective that I bring to the work that I do with people. So I don't think that my faith has bounds. I really struggled. I was actually raised Roman Catholic. Just on my when I got into high school, I decided on my own to leave the church, not in any official capacity. Just I stopped going because I couldn't support what I found to be a really hurtful institution, at least hurtful to me as I started to understand myself as a gay person. And I found my way to the Episcopal Church because I had an ex-boyfriend who was an Episcopalian, and I met him and I'm one of those people that does not believe things happen by accident, right? So I met him right before I started to have these mystical experiences and sense the divine asking me to come back into relationship, to open myself back up to relationship. And we went and explored a bunch of different Roman Catholic churches. I was living in New York City in the Village at the time. So we found some gay-friendly churches, but they still were not feeding me. And he was the one who was like, well, how about the Episcopal Church? And I found my way there. We went to, I'm going to do a plug for the Church of St. Luke in the Fields in the West Village in New York. Walked in, mostly gay congregation, and suddenly hymns were in my register and I could sing them. And, and at the piece, it's like fabulous kisses all over the place. I thought, this is where I want to be. Right now, not every Episcopal church is like that, but that has become, in so many ways, the place that grounds me. But it also is not a big enough container for all that I am wanting to know about my place in the world, and all that I want to know about how the divine is expressed in the world. And so I seek high and low. When I left the order in officially 2015, but I started the process in 2014. I was determined not to go to an Episcopal church. I thought, I've had enough of that. We prayed every day, 3 times a day, and I was done. And I tried lots of different things out. That's when I started to explore more seriously Buddhist groups. Although I had always been fascinated by them and had read plenty of Buddhist works. But I started to look at other denominations, started going to some Quaker meetings, and tried just not doing anything on a Sunday, right? Just like being like, I'm sleeping in. And I found my way back to the Episcopal Church. It's just a language and a container that I understand and that opens me up to explore even more fully. And so I continue to just be a seeker, and I don't let anything, I try not to let anything stand in my way. And that's part of how I came to appreciate more fully the sisters, right? Because so many sisters are also seekers. And I'm like, I'm down, peace, right? Like, let's do this together. Let's figure something out. So.
And I want to just put a plug in. I know on Facebook Live, you guys now are doing your daily
night prayer.
Your daily night prayers on Facebook Live. And you started over the quarantine.
Yeah.
So I want to put a plug in for that. Find you on Facebook. And also, how are you keeping the vigil now? Like, you have done the Friday night anti-violence vigil at Castro and Market for
almost 4 years now.
Oh my gosh, it's been that long.
4 years in June. We started out as an observance after the Orlando Pulse massacre. And for the first 3 years, I think we did it every Friday, unless there was some kind of catastrophic, unsafe event, like rain didn't stop us, but the fires last year or the year before, the fires did. It was unhealthy for folks to be out. And then, a lot of our folks, because of their health, couldn't continue. And we moved to the first Friday of the month. So we were out there first Friday of the month. And then the great pause, right? So how do we do that? Well, we already had, online presence, Facebook presence, social media presence is, part of what we do. And so at least we were not learning something new. And so what we did was, so for the first Friday, we would all share pictures of all of us doing the vigil over the years, right? Reminding people that, no, this is archived photos. And to remind people that we are all still here and we all still stand for the same thing. And, we're all sheltering in place to be safe, and you should be too. And so we did this, we do that online until it's safe to be out. And then we'll resume being back on the corner with our signs. We did the same thing over Holy Week. So we're usually out for Holy Week every year. Palm Sunday, we walk through our neighborhoods, very popular. We did do Ash Wednesday, so we did get out on the street for that before the shelter in place happened. So normally Sister Mayjoy, we accompany Sister Mayjoy for the Maundy Thursday walk, and we just had to, share all our memories. Fortunately, Facebook holds my pictures better than my phone does. So we just traveled through Holy Week that way. And though it's not as perfect as we'd like, in reality, it does reach a lot of people that we don't normally reach face to face, and people in far off places. So it's all good.
So I want to take this moment to just really appreciate your being here in conversation with me. I adore you both. I think you know that. And I'm really grateful that you took the time out of your day to come be with us. And I want to say that you can find out more about the Companions of Dorothy the Worker at your website, which is
right. www.companionsofdorothy.org.
great. And I'm sure you have a donation link there too to help support your ministry. So you can find out more about them or just be out and about anywhere in the queer community in San Francisco, and you're bound to run into them.
Check us out on social media, on Facebook.
Right. You're on Facebook. Both Diana and Simon are on Facebook. And So thank you very much for being here. I really
Thank
love
you for asking us.
And
my pleasure. It's always great to reflect on, like, why are we doing what we do, right?
Yeah, what are we doing again?
Yeah, exactly.
well, and I think that, the whole purpose of this is to provide people viewpoints about ways to be in the world that might prove helpful, right? Yeah. Or prove fruitful. And so, I think that the way you do what you do and the intentions behind it answers that question. So thank you very much. And I know Simon has to go soon. And so I just want to thank you and appreciate you. And yay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello there, everybody. This is Fred, the producer and editor of the show. I hope you enjoyed this month's episode. If you would like to hear an extended version, there's a full hour-long episode from this interview, which you can access on our Patreon page. You can also access this episode 1 week before it goes public on our Patreon as well, if you would like to support us there. And if you're not able to do so, that is totally okay, of course. We would appreciate if you would share this episode with your friends, if you learned anything or just enjoyed yourself. We are having a great time putting this show out for you, and we just wanted to remind you that during the coronavirus pandemic, we will be filming these episodes over Zoom, so the quality might not be as pristine as you may be used to if you've listened to this podcast for a little bit. But, we're just trying to make things work out, and we hope you still enjoy the show.